I want to be rich like a Saudi princess goat one day.
We drinking around, we chasing stars. We feeling up, we face so high. We on the run, we up, we fly. Now that we made it, don't know why.
Elevate, that's great. Elevate, pop pill. Elevate, that's great. Elevate, pop pill. Make way, make code. Break weight now, pop pill. Punch my ticket. You ready?
John Orpheus is the moniker of a man and his band from Toronto, Ontario. Over the past 2 years, John Orpheus and his partners Sarah Jane Riegler and Chaenel Mattise have released 4 EPs, including their latest, Goatlife, all while repping their House Orpheus organizational collective, which attempts to unify Toronto's thriving community of dancers, singers, MCs, and DJs from the African diaspora. They're playing a show celebrating Toronto's Caravana Festival, and we met recently to have a talk about their work, but there's a couple of notes I need to make about this show. Firstly, the studio I occasionally use to record episodes of Toronto had some technical issues for this interview, and even though it seemed like things were okay when we finally started our talk, it seems that 2 mics weren't actually working. So, sadly, very sadly and regretfully, the audio here is a bit uneven. Despite my best efforts, Chaenel and I are in the mix, but quiet. We're like documentary filmmakers addressing their subjects from behind the camera. If you listen with headphones, it should be fine. You can hear us, you can follow things, it's fine. But I just wanted to point this out. Secondly, there's a point where John Orpheus mentions what high school I went to, and I kind of, in the moment, I brush it off. Partially because I was kind of taken aback by this complete stranger knowing such a thing. And also because I was still flustered. I was distracted by all the tech stuff not working, and I was trying to monitor a screen that was set up behind us. I was trying to look at it for mic levels and try to figure out if I could fix whatever. I knew something was off. I was trying to fix it, but I was also simultaneously conducting an interview. So it all just really sucked. And if you're new to the show, please know that I tend to go to great lengths to make a podcast that sounds great, and this one, sadly, didn't quite work out, and I feel bad for the John Orpheus people as well. But, like I say, it's a good talk, and I want to bring up something else, because the point of what I was just saying is this. As the interview is going on, I'm thinking to myself, man, I know this John guy from somewhere. He is so familiar. Who is this guy? When we stop rolling, he admits that he's a guy named Mike Downing, and we went to high school together like 25 years ago. I didn't know this. The whole time I'm like, I something. So he and I went to the same high school. I just thought that was odd. It's a good talk, and the circumstances are strange. And actually, that's kind of why I wanted to share it with you, because they gave me their time, and it's a good talk, so that's why I'm sharing it, even though it could have sounded better. I just wanted to say all of those things. With in-kind support from Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, and of course listeners like you who make flexible monthly pledges at patreon.com/creativecontrol, and subscribe to this podcast and download episodes and tell your friends about it. Thank you for doing all that, by the way. This is the 413th episode of Creative Control, featuring John Orpheus, with your host, me, Vish Khanna.
You ready?
Welcome to my show. I apologize for myself. For those who don't know, we've had some issues here, and I'm just trying to resolve them, and I did the best I can. But it's nice to see you. I'm glad I'm now facing you, because I was facing the screen. I didn't like it. I didn't like the screen. So thank you for being here. Why don't we begin here so that people listening can identify your voice. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my pleasure. So my name is Sarah Jane Riegler. I'm originally from Northern Michigan, and now I'm here in Toronto doing the drummer and DJ thing with John Orpheus.
Nice to have you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
And you?
Hello, my name is Chaenel Mattise.
No, it's not. Imposter!
The one and only a vocalist and dancer. adding some spice. So yeah, that is me.
Vocalist and dancer adding some spice. That's nice. Do you ever do any cooking? Like, is there something you do with the band?
I definitely do. And they can tell you about that. Yeah, I love to cook and I love to eat. So those are nice treats, guys. Just so you know.
Girl's got a foodie Instagram. She likes to eat so much. So.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is John Orpheus. I am from the island of Trinidad, but now I am Canadian.
Now you are fully Canadian? You just
No, I've been.
behind you?
It's all behind me. I've left my scandalous colonial past behind.
How long have you been in Toronto?
For 6 years. Or I moved from the 519. That's how come I know what a Guelph switch looks like and a phone number.
Nice. Where did you live in the 519?
In Kitchener.
Kitchener, Ontario.
Kitchener, Ontario.
That is a nice city.
It's a nice. He said he put a question on the nice and a question on the city.
I have to say, I know it sounded bad, but I love Kitchener and Cambridge.
It's true.
You grew up in
You
Cambridge.
attended Glenview Park Secondary School.
That's true. You did your research.
Yeah, exactly. We know what's up. We.
It's just close enough to Toronto that you can get there and do stuff.
Yeah, it's far enough away that you can not feel like you're in Toronto.
I
So.
commute
Yeah.
to Toronto because I live in Kitchener. So yes, it's close enough to do your thing. I'll be back.
She's a commuting rock star.
From both of you, from Kitchener to Toronto.
Well, basically just my passion and my family up there. That's always, that's it.
Is your family in Kitchener or Toronto?
My family is in Kitchener,
Oh, okay.
and then my music family is in Toronto. So I'm always coming up just to work on music, really, and then just build a connection, really, with everything. But yeah, I'd say my dreams, I guess you can say.
Okay.
That's what brings me up here.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And Sarah, where did you say you're from originally?
Northern Michigan. I'm from a tiny town called Rapid City, Michigan. Shout out. It's 1,000 people. Very vanilla and conservative there. And I've been here for about 6 years.
Okay.
Toronto.
6 years as well.
Yeah.
You both, did you meet here in Toronto?
Yeah, about 3 years ago, the three of
Yeah,
us.
well, we
The two
knew
of
each
us.
other from Kitchener,
Right.
Chaenel and I.
Right.
But yeah, we met in Toronto. Sarah and I met in Toronto. We was at the Cameron House because you got to get your old country. And Sarah was performing,
I was.
and I was at the bar, unable to get my beer, which is a regular occurrence in that Cameron House front room. And I was like, oh, this drummer's playing nice. But I couldn't see anything because you're blocked. And then when I moved out, I was like, oh, she's the drummer. So I went up and talked to her. And then we started a band within 2 paragraphs of that conversation.
Yeah, it was quick.
Country music?
Yeah, I have a pretty diverse background, so I did like the whole music conservatory thing for a while. I moved here actually in Toronto to do my master's degree at University of Toronto. But after that, I was playing in a bunch of different indie bands. So one of them was this band called Oxford Blue. So it was like, folk, indie, alt country kind of stuff. And I was with that band playing at the Cameron House when he saw me. So just completely, totally different vibe than what we do together.
Yeah, well, normally if I'm walking down Queen Street and there's something going on at the Cameron House, my ears will perk up and I'll be like, oh, this sounds good. I think I'll poke my head in and have a beer and listen. Because, I'm interested in music and
Music of all kinds.
of all kinds, yeah.
What did you two do when you started a band together? What kind of music did you
Well, no music at all. For about 9 months, all we did was talk about our band and how great it was.
Yeah. I went and saw a lot of shows and just
hung out, and just
became
be friends.
friends.
Yeah.
Is that weird having a conceptual band where you don't actually do anything?
Well, this is the thing. A band is just a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can change the name of the band, you can change the style of music it plays, you can change members in the band, but a band is just a relationship between the people in it. So it wasn't really a conceptual band. It was a real band. We just hadn't gotten around to making real music yet.
Right.
Yeah, and we were both playing a lot. Like, I had 3 other projects at the time, and he was already playing he already had his crew and his band together. So we were just, getting to know each other and feeling it out. And I had gone and seen his band perform even in its current iteration. But then we eventually got to working together. And
Blam
Yeah,
Blam,
yeah.
and the rest is legendary, epic history.
True say.
It took 9 months
Yeah.
to produce the baby that was your band.
Well, and then we didn't even really
Hey.
start making the music. We just started playing together, but then the music even come later. So really, it just goes to show that it's about the vibe between the people. That's the thing. That is the band.
So, Sarah, are you primarily a drummer then?
Yeah, drummer and percussionist, first and foremost. Been
DJ.
doing that for some time now, about 15 years, and I did a bunch of different stuff. Like I said, I had like a big classical background. I'm from the States, so I did a lot of drumline. But then I've always been really interested in non-Western music and culture. So especially when I got to Toronto, I really got to dig into that, and that was a lot of the reason I moved here. So I did a lot of study of Balinese gamelan and North Indian drumming, played tabla for a while. But most importantly and relevant to this project is I've been studying West African music for the last 10 years. So
You did a lot
yeah.
of Balawat Gamahu?
Balinese gamelan and
Yo, it sounds like a
that
Star
should be-
Trek villain,
that
doesn't
should
it? Balinese gamelan. You
That should
shall
be my
not
DJ
take
name.
the universe by surprise this time.
yeah. But most recently in the last little while I started DJing as well too. So
True.
So
Badness.
the Balinese gamelan should be my damn DJ name.
Yeah, that's
let's
it.
be
Yo.
real.
That is good.
Yo,
Yeah.
it sounds like a dance hall suit with Balinese Gamelan, brand new mixtape.
So you
Fire.
grew up in the conservative part of Michigan.
Yeah.
How do you start to get into music when you're living in conservative Michigan? What are your outlets there? Who teaches you? How do you get into that?
Yeah, there's a lot of music. A lot of the music was a lot of like folk roots and bluegrass. I was always, I feel like,
Ding a ding ding ding
exactly.
ding
But which
ding,
I mean, like I
ding.
do have a lot of a big
Going
part of my heart from that. But I also, when I was in high school, I was obsessed with like punk and metal, and we had really big local scenes for that, like punk, metal, ska. So
a lot of punk festivals in that area?
like DIY, like really, like literally on farms and stuff, just totally, yeah. So I was doing that in high school, and then we'd always go down to like Detroit, which is like 4 hours away, or Grand Rapids, and go actually see like the big shows coming through. So that was an outlet for me. I was always very rebellious. And so I would just cling to those little music scenes with other people who were also rebellious. Because I feel like when you're brought up in that area, you either conform to it or you're just like, what in the hell? And you just have this like averse reaction, which is what I did. So, and there's enough people who were kind of in that alternative circle to build that culture and community. So, which I feel like that's the vibe that we even do now with what we do here. It's like you're just finding others who are of that kind of alternative, rebellious vibe.
In a conservative place, those kinds of scenes would pop up even more as a way to counter.
Yeah, it's like the counterculture.
And you have to
literally.
make it for yourself. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's very DIY.
Well, we don't want to join the clan. Might as well join this band.
Literally, that should be the catchphrase. That was like my upbringing. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the dancing and the spices. How did you first, enter your artistic realm?
Honestly, I've been singing typically in church. Like that's where it really started. I used to actually act. That was the first thing. So I would start kind of getting into that. It was kind of musical kind of stuff. I went to Eastwood. There was lots of arts there and different ways for me to kind of explore.
Eastwood is it a high school?
A high school.
In Kitchener.
Yeah. The School of Arts, they have like a high line of that, I guess you can say. But yeah.
That's pretty much it. Oh, wait a minute. Is John
That is
clearing his
where-
throat because
No.
he is something of a mentor for you? That's where I feel like that's going.
That's funny. So in grade 10, this is where we met, okay? So I was waiting to see if he's going to tell the story because he said it so well. But okay, there was an audition. Actually, there was 3 auditions that day. And this is where I blossomed, I guess you could say. Okay.
It's such a
there
good
was
story.
Othello, Merchant of Venice, and another one. And
Another Shakespeare.
Hamlet.
Yeah. That's
Oh, just one of those
Oh my God,
unimportant
another one.
That's
ones.
a big one.
And Hamlet, and
Yeah.
I was auditioning for all 3. He was one of the guys sitting there, and
They're called directors.
I think guy sitting there is really what seems over a game.
Well,
That's what I'm
considering
saying.
two of them were
And-
women.
Right.
I came into the room, and what he says is striking is that I have these boots, and they're up really high. And he said, okay, I guess he's been asking everyone who came in for the audition if they ever been in a fight or anything like that, and no one had anything to say. It was all just little like, oh yeah, I've pushed someone, or I've done this, I've done that. And while I am not a violent person, however, I told him the story.
However, she is Jamaican.
I was telling
So
him.
don't mess around.
Yeah. So he asked me, and I said, yeah, well, back in grade 6, there was this guy, and he was going around, and he was saying the N-word to everyone. And this girl was telling me that, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. But he actually ended up coming to me, and he was just going off, and I was like, okay. And I ended up pushing him down the hill, and I just was punching him, and I'm like, hey! Long story short, he learned his lesson, and it was kind of actually a big thing, because everyone was just like, whoa. And I told him
And
the
I was
story, and
like,
he was like, yeah.
Othello, are you that?
I think we found Othello, and from there, we just had a really great friendship. We ended up going into John Orpheus is Dead, the movie, which our friend Gada has directed, and that's where we really, really, really kicked it off.
So
I
your
feel like,
friend
too.
directed a film? Is it a film that we
My
all
sister
know?
Gada made a movie. It's called John Orpheus
I
is
know this
Dead.
movie. I've heard this wasn't this a big movie?
Oh, I don't know if it was big. It has it's
It
some
has me in it,
it is named after
It
me,
is
so it
the
can't be
birth
small.
of John Orpheus, as we know it.
Yeah, she Gada wrote and directed. We kind of did a DIY kind of thing, but Gada's a genius, so it was DIY with a genius, and yeah, I was obviously part of it, and so I introduced Chaenel to Gada, and then Chaenel became sort of co-star of the movie Ting, and the movie Ting is crucial to the genesis of the group, because it was, Sarah and I were doing our stroke our ego talk about how great our band is, but we hadn't actually made any music,
Right.
primarily because we were so focused on the movie, and the movie got into the Nice Film Festival in the south of France.
Oh, wow.
And so Gada and myself and some of the team flew to Nice to premiere the movie, and because it was John Orpheus is Dead, and John Orpheus J.O. is Dead, John Orpheus is like a lot of gold chains. It's like a hyped up, swaggier Lady Gaga-esque version of me. And so when I went, every sequin shirt and gold chain and like feather boa and leather pants I took that with me. And then I got a phone call that there was a fire at my apartment here in Toronto, and all my stuff was gone. So the fire just burnt all my books, all my guitars, all my clothes. So all I had left was swaggy J.O. in a bag.
Yeah.
Just your costume from the
My
costume,
net.
is that the wrong term? I'm not.
Oh no, regalia is.
Right. I don't mean to use the wrong word. Yeah.
And so my net worth became 50% gold chains in an instant. And then I came back, and it was like, oh, you got to build everything from scratch. And so I did what I always do in times of crises. We just started making music, and we decided we're going to make 4 mixtapes. Mike Schlosser from Little Noise Records produced all of them, and we're going to make 4 of them. We're going to write, record, release every 3 months. We're going to finish a new one. And in a year, we finished all 4 of them. And we put them all out, did a video for each, did singles for each. And so a year ago, we finished Goatlife, and we were busy with House Orpheus, building the community. Like, we have a bunch of events.
Sorry, what's House Orpheus?
House Orpheus is kind of something we started when the 3rd mixtape came out. There's a place called Art Square Gallery across from the AGO. So, shout out, big up to the man down. Turkish contingent. What up,
Yeah.
Istanbul?
Yeah.
Or is it Constantinople? I don't know.
Sure.
Big up. Or is it just called Erdogan now? Because the Turkish president, Erdogan, just basically became president for life,
Right.
i.e. dictator. So
There's a lot of that going around.
there's a lot of that. Trump's trying to do that in America too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what we did, big up to the Mando. So what we did was we just started this thing called House Orpheus Presents, where we do live shows and we'd perform and we'd bring in other performers. And then the second one was a spoken word open mic kind of thing. And that went so well. It was spoken word, but it went so well that we started a second event called Speak Your Truth, which was like an open mic for anyone who wanted to do like, rap, spoken word, sing, comedy, whatever. And then as Sarah started DJing, we started a every Friday night thing called Afro House. And so those 3 events became sort of touchstones where the House Orpheus community, like all these people just started kind of flocking to this new sequin JO, and what we were doing, primarily because it was like, a lot of Pan-African kids, either like born in throughout the African diaspora or just interested in the African diaspora or just descendants, like first generation. And so our thing was really about because we're fit that description, our thing became sort of a touchstone for a lot of these sort of creative, hyper creative, hyper swaggy, love to dance, love like all the Afro pop music, dancehall music, hip hop music. They all started coming out, and so we spent a year just sort of investing a lot of time in that.
Yeah.
And finally, we're like, oh yeah, we're a band. Remember our band? And so
Yeah, we kind of forgot for a bit, but it's to bring it back to what I was saying earlier about like creating. You have all these people that maybe don't fit into the tapestry of where they live or where they're at or their communities. So I feel like House Orpheus, just like when I was coming up in Michigan and kind of found a lot of like a safe haven in different music and art scenes, I feel like that was a lot of the impetus for us wanting to do that. Is like we're really big on creating very safe, inclusive spaces. Like we have no tolerance of like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia. We always list the Afropunk. We love the Afropunk Festival out of Brooklyn, and so they have these rules. They have these like rules that they list. So that was really like to support and uplifting the art scene here and all the amazing artists we were in just encountering, but also making sure people have a safe space. So even like at Afro House, when people are just coming to dance, I've had people tell me like literally write a blog post saying it's the most inclusive party they've been to. So we, like he was saying, so we were just like really focusing on that for the last year. And then we were like, oh yeah, remember that one time we recorded this dope mixtape called Goatlife a year ago? Probably should
Probably should release that.
It was just that it literally all of this that's going on tonight at Luanda House and all of the whole launch, like literally it was like I spent the first sort of 3-4 months working on a book, on a memoir that I was lucky enough to sell to Penguin Random House. And then as soon as the contract was signed, it was like all things literary turned aside, and it was like, oh, we should do this. And it started off with our friend Kendall Thompson, who's playing tonight.
Right.
She said, well, let's do a show together in May. And then the show date kept getting moved back because I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do a show, it should be special. Let's get a bigger venue. And, oh, yeah, we have this mixtape, so maybe we should release that. And then it just grew and grew and grew and snowballed. And so now Goatlife is finally coming out. And the best part is that all the people that we've been making friends with for a year in the House Orpheus community are the people that have helped us make the parachute video, and they're going to help us make the Night to Night special. So it's kind of come full circle, and I just don't know what we're going to do now.
It sounds like hearing you all talk about sort of a community mindedness is great. And as I was listening to Goatlife, which now that you say it was it done a year ago? Did you say?
It was done like literally. We released Black Star Rising, the third one, in June of 2017.
Yeah.
And we immediately, because that's what we've been doing, we finish one, immediately start the next. So probably, I would say, by mid-August, it was mastered.
Of 2017. Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's because we could have had it done by the end of July. We're just kind of like, well, there's no rush because we knew we weren't going to put it out right away like we did the others. So,
well, the reason I bring it up is because we're talking about the community mindedness that fosters the work you do outside of the music. When we come back to the music, because you sing on Goatlife a lot about Toronto neighborhoods, I think, different communities. I guess I'm wondering, because it's now a year old, does Goatlife reflect a Toronto that is much different than the Toronto we're in right now, or a community that's different? Does it feel
I don't.
the same?
Yeah, I don't think so.
We've had a provincial election here in Ontario.
Yeah, but those vibes are already there, right? Like the vibes off of our election are kind of the fumes off of Trump, which are the fumes off of Brexit, which are the fumes off of Black Lives Matter and Me Too, and all those things been going on. I mean, when, I remember a couple summers ago when Black Lives Matter started, my favorite thing to do to kind of semi-troll people was to quote Malcolm X. But don't say Malcolm X, and people would be, wow, that is so relevant and current. Like, that is the most insightful.
You would quote Malcolm X without ascribing the quote to him?
At first.
Were you taking credit for
No.
it?
I would just put it out there as a quote in
quote
quotations,
it.
but I wouldn't say who it was.
Right.
I'd let people comment on it, and what you'd hear is, wow, that's so insightful to what's happening now. Like, who said this? Who said this? And after a while, I'd go, oh, that was Malcolm X. That's 1964.
Right.
And then they would go, oh. And you realize that, like, a lot the problems we have now have been the problems we've had, and the solutions are still the solutions, and the commentary is still the commentary. So, and with art, I always have this belief that if you make something that's actually powerful and potent and profound, it's going to be powerful and potent and profound tomorrow, next year, next century. It's going to be what it is. And so,
well, let me put this another way then. Because if it doesn't reflect a particular time in Toronto per se, like if it's timeless, as you say, what about you guys? Does it reflect, like, going back to a record you made a year ago? How much of it were you like, this isn't us anymore, or if we did this again, I would have done this now?
No, that's a really good question. Yeah.
I don't have that, like, as the lyricist, and a lot of the themes come off the lyrics. I don't feel I would have done it differently if we were doing it now. I probably would, but I don't regret anything that was done, and I feel like, the whole the whole process was the reason why we did it so immersively and so, like, automatic. The whole point was you have just enough time to do it right, but not enough to start second guessing. And so there's an immediacy to it, there's a roughness to it, and a sincerity to it, and an authenticity to it, and it literally reflects things that I and we were going through in that period. And you can imagine, like, it started with me being homeless, right? And not really homeless, because, I could just get another place. But it started in this fire that was literally a purifier and a cleanser. And it's like, okay, all this stuff you've literally held since high school is now gone. Now you have to start anew. And so it's really a document of our evolving a relationship with ourselves, with each other, and with the city, and with the community that we're around. And that stuff is, it's always an interesting thing when we get to this point we have to perform it. It happens so automatically that a lot of time I caught myself, like, I'd be at my kitchen table on Friday night listening to the music that we'd made and put together, writing lyrics, and then Friday morning at 11 I'd be in the studio recording it, and I might not come back to that song ever again. Like, the next time I come back to it might be like, here's the mix of it, or here's the master, which mix, or how do we adjust it, and that process. But the actual creation is almost automatic. And because of that, I always find myself having to relearn what the thing is, and kind of, it feels alien. because it happened in such a compressed period of time. You didn't get to live with it, and so now it's like, well, what does that really mean? And I think that's why Goatlife took so long to come out for me personally. Like, I didn't feel ready to come out and say those things, and now coming back to it, when I look at it, what I see is funny. Our publicist Ola is kicking it here. So Ola asked me, as a good publicist would, she's like, well, can you explain in a sentence what these songs are? And I'm like, oh, no one's ever asked me that. And so I was like, and the themes are about love and a quest for wholeness and a quest for my personal journey of wanting to, I be Trinidadian, but be Canadian and be both. And how do I take hold of that story, and how do I write myself into the Canadian story? And I feel like that's what makes it so relevant now, because the people we're surrounded by, again, so many of our friends like are born in Jamaica, born in France, born in Nigeria, born in like Michigan, like all over, and they're all trying to do the same thing. Yeah. And so, no, I don't wish, there isn't anything I wish that I would change, although if I were making it now, I would probably make a whole different thing, but that's the point. Yeah. But what I am discovering about that automatic creation is that it's really wrapped up in who we are and in the process of claiming our identities. And I feel like that's the relevance of where it is now, especially in the Pan-African community in Toronto. 5 years ago, we were all Caribbean. 5 years, fast forward now, and the Black community is almost like, Caribbean is still like half of us, but then there's another half of us that's all from Africa. And those communities didn't typically get along. Like, my homies would tell me when they grew up in Scarborough, they would fight the African kids. Right, and we're coming from a place. Well, quite frankly, a lot of the most fun I have with House Orpheus is when you get Jamaicans and Nigerians in the same room.
Oh my God!
And
so
they're just
fun.
like, and it's just like. You're so familiar, but you're so different. But I love you, and it's just this love thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the whole that's the relevancy is, that the city is changing. You're right. Yeah. In that space, it's changing in that direction, and a lot of what we're doing, because part of my life was, how do you fuse this colonial past with this Canadian present, this Caribbean past with this Canadian present, this Pan-African past with this Canadian present. That is one of the most relevant issues to everyone around us.
No, that's very well put. I appreciate that.
It's a podcast in itself.
Yeah, literally.
That was good. No, it was good. But I want to come back to what you're saying about Toronto and that duality, or it's a plurality now.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
But I just want to ask the same kind of question on a musical, from a musical perspective, to Sarah and Chaenel. Like, you're revisiting Goatlife after a year of having made it. Musically, do you see things there that seem like not who you are now, or did it feel like, oh yeah, that was us, that was our expression, that is our expression? Like, did you feel like are the songs going to change live now that you've approached music in a different way at all?
No, that's a great question, and it's so interesting. I think, one, though, like, with any art in general, but like what we wanted to do is we just wanted to capture moments in time when we were doing this. Like, we were like he was, like John was saying, we didn't give ourselves a lot of time to think, and we were just like, just be in that flow state, capture what's happening right now in real time in our lives and document it, which I think is what art is. It's just a reflection of whatever.
It's an archive too.
Yeah, it's an archive, and like that's what we're saying. As he was saying, it's a time capsule that's timeless, but and it is so. It is so impactful, like, when you see a Malcolm X quote from, the 60s and how relevant that still is today. And it's so important to have that documentation and just to always capture these different kinds of expressions. So, it's funny because we have a completely different process. So, like, I'm the first one that always goes in the studio. So I just sit with our producer, Mike, and so I record, I bring in like African drums, bells, rattles. Sometimes I'm just clapping. And so I record all these loops and just these rhythms literally on loop. And that's what our producer uses to build all the tracks. So like I have such an interesting creative process in this because I'm at the very beginning of it,
Yeah.
and I have no idea what he's going to do with this because I don't give him any context. Because I want to just give him the raw material, and I want him to just genuinely create whatever he feels with it.
So does he add all the musical layers on top of that, or does that something you all contribute?
So he does most. Our producer does most of the. So like he takes
So-
my stuff.
Yeah, like Sarah's. It always starts with what Sarah's laid down, and we've kind of created like a library of those beats, and then Mike and I do a lot of talking about what's the sonic palette. What's the type, what's the references. We'll send a lot of tracks back and forth and go, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And just really our conversations always about deconstructing things we're hearing around and sharing that with each other. And so by the time he gets to where Sarah's done her laid down those rhythms, like he's created a library of them, and then he'll do things like build instruments with like the sound of her drum. So there's one drum, one of our tracks, a bunch of our tracks actually, he takes the sound of her drum and he makes an instrument with it, so you can play it in all the notes, and then he'll turn that into the bass for one track.
Right.
And so a lot of her stuff, even when it's not drums, it shows up.
It's actually still like the bass line of it.
It
Yeah.
becomes the sauce that
Yeah.
the meal cooks in.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
You almost don't have a relationship with what you did originally.
No, I don't at all. So what's really cool is I have this completely hands-off approach. I mean, we still give general comments and feedback. Like, we still have a say, you know what I mean? But, like, I have no idea what's going to show up, and then it shows up. And I'm just like, it's just so cool to see.
It's like an assembly line where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you're done with your piece, hand off.
Yeah.
And then Mike and I are bouncing stuff together. Like, sometimes I'll play the odd guitar or bass on something, or, if we need it played badly, that's my and then we'll sort of dial that in, and then once we have like a structure or thing happening that we're responding to, then we'll just say, all right, here you go.
Right.
And so for a lot of these, we did like twice the amount of tracks that we actually released.
Okay.
Yes, there's a lot of backlog.
Especially with Goatlife, I think we did the most for Goatlife, where there's probably 15 sketches we did.
Yeah.
And then from those sketches, I'll take them and I'll write. And then, like I said, usually it's a Friday, Saturday thing. And so I'll write Friday night, come in Saturday morning, and we'll just go to work assembling, laying down what I've built, chopping it up, rearranging it. Or sometimes I'll lay it down and Mike will be like, yeah, I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Let me send you something tomorrow, and I'll leave. And then, same thing as Sarah. Like, I don't know what he's going to send back at that point, but again, it's built on the sauce of what Sarah's laid down.
Right.
And really it's built on the conversations that Mike and I have had about stuff, which was really built on the conversation Sarah and I have had about stuff
For years,
about
yeah.
music. So all of that time we spent talking
The
about
9-month
our band.
gestation period, it was like the foundation,
Yeah.
because now we know who we are. And then Chaenel and I, and then our friend Chelsea, who used to perform in our group with us, we were like the final spice on top. And so we at the very end would lay down it came back to the spice. So we would lay down
Sauce,
the
spice, goat.
yeah.
We just need some curry goat.
Yeah.
We called it goat life, but it's really goat death.
But yeah, so we come in at the very end, and I know it gets dark.
Kind of tasty at the end.
So we throw some little, vocal spice up. So we do the harmonies at the end. So I'm at the very first recording session, and then I'm at the very end, and I kind of have, I have little comments here and there, but so it's cool. So even though we did that a year ago, it still feels, because especially like our sound is so uniquely randomly us. It's just like this random background. It's like we call it this like Pan-African hip hop. So I still feel like a year later I identify with that sound, because it was such a long process of that. Even so, like I said, for the first year we knew each other, we were just talking, like we literally just hung out. We like, we're just seeing other artists. We go see Lauryn Hill, Anderson .Paak. We see tons of local artists, and so we were constantly talking about like what we liked and what sounds we were into and what we wanted to do. Then we were also talking about philosophy. We were talking about Pan-Africanism. We were talking about intersectional feminism. Like we were just establishing the foundation of who we were. And so, and then we were figuring it out musically too. So like, I still feel like this sound and Goatlife is such a unique representation of our partnerships and our relationships. So it still feels so relevantly us to me.
It wouldn't really feel old ever when you're just coming back to something that is who you are.
Yeah.
Even if it's from the past, you have to come and bring the same energy as anytime you're even performing or whatever it is. We have to, show people what we were feeling then, now, because that's what they want to see and what they vibed with back then. And they're expecting that. And
the process is about discovering the truth of who we are, and like the old soul guys used to say, like, the truth never goes out of fashion for us personally, but and really that's what it really is, like the strongest. There's a lot of politics. I'm interested in a lot of politics, but the truth is I try to live a very apolitical life. I believe in art and beauty, and I believe in that the most political thing you can do is to be fulfilled and to be happy, and that's what this record is about.
So do you feel that Toronto in particular is supportive enough of the kind of music you're making? Like I feel like this is
our Toronto.
It's a somewhat external perspective because I don't live here, but I feel very immersed in what goes on in Toronto. Yeah. And when I hear a record like yours, I can feel different strains of Toronto in it because of the multi-musical genre. I just feel like that's what I came up in the city. Like this city has this. We're getting into multiculturalism here, and I want to be I know it's not all it's cracked up to be, but there is something very Toronto about this record.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if you feel, there's a lot of stuff going on in the city that is supportive of different cultures, but do you feel like what you're doing is supported enough and understood even enough in this city, in your home city, compared to maybe other places? Have you any experience with that?
I mean, I can tell you this: it's a lot more understood and supported than I was in Kitchener. That's why I left Kitchener.
Right.
I was doing, my journey with this stuff is that, came over as an immigrant, and then in a very sort of, let's say, unstable family situation and a lot of stuff going on. And my way of anchoring myself was to do music, was to create. And so then I started playing in bands, and it was like I'd always be in rock bands, but I love rock and roll, love punk, love metal, but that always never seemed satisfying enough. And so I would always be trying to sing soul music in it or rap in the group, because I was trying to access parts of myself that was cut off in that situation. And so there's always this kind of gnashing and grinding out, and I never fit in. My bands were really good, but when it came to like industry people, they were always like, well, gosh, we don't know where that fits. And so so we don't know how to sell it. And of course Canada is such an impossible country to tour, and I have done it, but it's really difficult, as you know. And so you kind of need some kind of support. You kind of need some way to break through. If you live in Atlanta, you can tour in a 5-hour radius till you're like, you can become a millionaire by touring in a 5-hour radius of Atlanta.
Right.
In Toronto, it's like, well, if you're going west, it's like Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, 12 hours around the lake to Thunder Bay, then it's Winnipeg. And you've driven, as 4 locations you can play, and you've driven nearly 40 hours straight. And so I went through that struggle living in Kitchener, and at the time I hooked up with these guys from England, from Manchester. The Happy Mondays drummer Gaz Whalen moved to Toronto, and they were recording he had this band called the Hippie Mafia, and they were recording at Catherine North Studios out in Hamilton, which one of my first musical mentors in rock music, Dan Aiken, rest in peace, was recording their album. And they're like, well, they sent a ticket to their singer, and in typical, like, Happy Mondays, that's Factory Records, that's like Stone Roses, Oasis, Joy Division, that scene. And I love Manchester music, but so they typical Manchester fashion, right? They send money for the guy to get a ticket, and he doesn't show up when they go to pick him up. He apparently shot it up his arm in drugs. And so they're sitting there going, well, we got this record. We need a singer who can do rock and roll, but he's got to be like hip hop and he's got to sing soul. And they're like, there's no one like that in the whole world. But I'd been going through this process of trying to access all these parts of myself through music. And Dan knew that. So Dan was like, well, I got a guy right here, and just played them some of my old band stuff. So ended up in this band, made a record, ended up on tour in Europe with Liam Gallagher's BDI band. So like Oasis minus Noel, basically. Yeah. And then when I came back, it was just a crazy tour. It was an eye-opener. And people over there, all the things in Kitchener where they were like, well, we're not into that. That's kind of weird. We're not into it. So I started getting this complex that maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I should just do something else. All those things when I was there on that tour was celebrated. Everyone was like Liam Gallagher himself was like, oh, I can't do a Mancunian. It's like, you're a top fucking front man, mate. Right? And all of this. And so it was kind of weird to see people that I'd looked up to in that world who were kind of like embracing me for being me. Yeah. And as soon as that happened, I got back into Kitchener and I just packed my bags and came to Toronto. Didn't even have a plan. I just came. And yeah, I mean, the truth is the Canadian industry and the people that run it are still the same people that ran it 15 years ago. And so they don't really get it. But there's a kind of, for me anyway, my journey is kind of like the people get it. People understand it. Yeah. People understand the sincerity of it, the quality of it, the passion of it, the poetry of it. And so I just decided I'm going to find the people that do get it, and I'm going to build the music around them. And that's Chaenel, that's definitely Sarah, and that's House Orpheus.
Nice. That's, again, very well put. Another
podcast. my friends say that. I have friends that nowadays when I do that, they just go, thank you for the podcast. It's just known, so I apologize.
Chaenel, John was saying that now that these projects are sort of behind him and you guys, he doesn't know what's coming next. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious if you can speak to that. Do you know what's coming up next?
She's going to be the lead singer. I'm going to back her up.
You must have shows and potentially more ideas for recordings and whatnot.
We're not done. But we're keeping some things. We might switch some roles up and whatnot. But that's all in the works,
I think I just got fired.
Yeah.
Someone else is going to be in charge of the spice, it sounds like.
And how much goes on. Right. No. But, we will have more, but it all will be... I guess
to be revealed.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. Well,
we always have something new, and I think that's also what keeps people tuned in, is that it always is fresh and it's a new style, like you said too, right? Just moving from where we were to now, it is a little bit of a different style each time coming up, but it's always new.
But we do, concretely, we do have some like singles and videos.
Oh,
and stuff.
Yeah. There's lots more on the way.
That we still need to reveal.
There's some videos coming this summer. Just keep on the watch. But
you're asking.
You're
like, I want that.
Just spit it out. He just said he didn't know what to do next. That's all I do.
Yeah. So
it's not an accusatory. I just thought I would ask.
No, I think for us, we just dropped Goatlife today, June 29th. So we're boom. So we're gonna let that breathe and have have its little goat way. So we actually dropped a video for Parachute a couple weeks back, our first single, but we do have a few more videos that are on their way this summer. So we've got a couple more singles to drop. So definitely be on the look for that. And then we're playing shows, we're touring. We have a really exciting show coming up for Carabana. Really beautiful show where actually it's with one of my old colleagues from University of Toronto. He was doing his PhD in ethnomusicology, which is the same field I was doing my master's in. And so he has this really dope calypso band. And so like old school, like kind of like traditional calypso, and they've got like steel pan and accordion, saxophone. They're excellent. They're called Shack Shack, Toronto based.
Shack Shack.
And so we're actually doing a show at Lula Lounge, and it's gonna be amazing. It's like this intergenerational Caribbean Trini kind of thing. So we're doing our thing. John's gonna join them for a couple standards.
And I'm so excited, right? The whole story about me trying to figure out my everything. It's friends of Sarah's, and suddenly it's like this full circle. And I get to sing a song by one of the great Kaisonians of Trinidad, oddly enough named Lord Kitchener.
Hey.
Yeah. Like, so the two great Kaisonians, or what we call old-time Kaisonians, are the Mighty Sparrow and Lord Kitchener.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, named after the same Kitchener that that Kitchener's named after,
wow,
inventor of the continent. Well, I mean, to understand Trinidad is you have to understand the British colonies, right? Like we were all chattel of the Queen until like 72. So, like, really, everyone I knew when I was born was basically a property of the Queen. And so so that's a really exciting thing for me.
Yeah, so that's coming up, and it was great. It's Wednesday, August 1st. So it's a really cool thing too when you think about the whole Carabana week. It's like we're starting off with this calypso based event, which you really don't see in Toronto. You got the big parades, you got the big fetes, but you don't see as much space given to more of the traditions like that.
Hi, so
yeah, exactly.
They said they want a musical change.
So that's coming up, and then we're gonna be putting together some tours in the fall in States probably, and Canada, and so. But yeah, so a lot of stuff, exciting things, and no doubt a full length album is gonna be on the way, and we're gonna be working towards that because we took these 4 mixtapes. Well, we took these 4 mixtapes. They were really just an experiment for us to figure out who are we, like what is our sound, what do we stand for, and we just like did it as an exercise. So now that we've created like 30 plus songs, and we have these 4 mixtapes, it's like great. Now we know who we are, and Goatlife really is the culmination of that. Or I feel like that is like, okay, this is our sound, and we have a very refined process because it was so prolific and so quick that it's like we're so stoked now. It's like, okay, now we got ourselves figured out. Let's go do a major album and just blast that.
Yeah, it's like we've built this machine that like there literally is, from the art to the mixing, the recording, the mastering, like everything has been built, and I know Mike, our producer, is like, he's been calling me to record the next thing since last year.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so like he's always one step ahead because he finished with Goatlife last July.
Right.
So for him it's just like, okay, we're just conditioned to want more. It's like a stomach, it just wants to be fed, right?
And
so
the feedback is always, I feel like we get more feedback each time too. Like
it has grown every time. Yeah.
People, have something to say, or it's like touch them in whatever way. So it's like, again, we kind of touched on that before, but
them want the spice.
And that energy too. That beautiful energy that we have to give. Like when you come to our shows, 100% you feel the friendship, the love, the hard work, and wanting to just deliver something great for everyone,
Yeah.
And that's what always happens, like, so.
Yeah,
We out here winning.
Spicy.
Where can people go to learn more about John Orpheus?
Oh, we've got a couple little 1-2 things on the internet.
We may be on the internet.
We may be on the internet. Maybe you've heard of the internet. So our main spot, we do have a website. It's just www.johnorpheus.com. So that's kind of a hub for everything. We got the information on House Orpheus there. We got like all of our mixtapes are on there and a little story. We got all of our videos on there. So that's a good first stop just to get oriented. But we've got, Instagram, Twitter. It's just at John Orpheus.
Okay.
Those are the main places. And we've got a YouTube channel because another thing we've been doing is not only mixtapes, we've been doing some really beautiful videos, working with local videographers. We are dance music at the end of the day, so there's such an amazing dance scene here. So we've got more on the Afro side of the spectrum, more Caribbean side of the spectrum, more hip hop side of the spectrum. So we always collaborate with local artists. So you can make sure to check out that YouTube channel as well, John Orpheus for everything. Super easy to find.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there one? I'm gonna go to Chaenel. Is there one song from Goatlife that you would select on behalf of everyone at this table for us to play right now, so people can hear a song from the record?
Big tunes, strictly big
what
tunes.
What would you pick, Chaenel? I know there's a lot of pressure for you. I know you don't. I know you don't like pressure. I can tell.
Lost. I don't know what y'all think.
Hey, girl, it's your choice. Lost.
Lost. Why did you pick that?
I actually really just love that song, and I fell asleep to it so many times. And it's always just like meditations of me just dancing and just having such a beautiful, it's like just vibrations I love from this.
Now, does it have a nebulous ending like the TV show Lost? Weird,
none of that.
We tie up all the loose ends.
None of that, but
All right, this is Lost from Goatlife by John Orpheus. Sarah, Chaenel, John, thank you so much for being on this show. And best
Our pleasure.
Big up yourself, Mr. Kana.
Okay, I will.
Lost inside your endless motion. Is this love or just commotion? I'm giving you the thing, you're smiling. You're giving me the loudest silence. Oh, I don't mind. So take your time. Lost inside your endless motion. Is this love or just commotion? I'm giving you the thing, you're smiling. You're giving me the loudest silence. Oh, I don't mind. So take your time. I've been out here for a long time, trying to get dollars yet get dime, trying to get love, trying to change mine. Mobbing out here till it's all mine. Mix ambition with the chinny grind. You my only mission, gotta take time. You up in my system, got blemmer. That one day I just sing out. Lost inside your endless motion. Is this love or just commotion? I'm giving you the thing, you're smiling. You're giving me the loudest silence. Oh, I don't mind. So take your time. This one for the crew in the place. This one for the human race. Grown man with liquor boy grace. Liquor trini boy with smiling face. Still a rude boy, never mind the grace. Accelerate, never mind the pace. In 07 pack amps and van. 17 are the same damn plan. Like this gin and sevens got me up. I don't know how I went to stop. This dream's a reality, yeah. This Alizé's got me ripped. I fall apart like every sip. This freedom's our destiny, yeah. Lost inside your endless motion. Is this love or just commotion? I'm giving you the thing, you're smiling. You're giving me the loudest silence. Oh, I don't mind. So take your time. Lost inside your endless motion. Is this love or just commotion? I'm giving you the thing, you're smiling. You're giving me the loudest silence. Oh, I don't mind. So take your time. Hey, get them bass to the face. Yelling out his face, I wind up she waist. Hey, see how she smiling. You giving me the loudest silence. Oh, I don't mind. So take your time.
Thanks once again to John Orpheus for their grace and their patience in appearing on this technologically challenged 413th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and available on every single iOS and Android platform and on Spotify and YouTube and Audio Boom and Overcast and all sorts of things. If you have one of those things, check out Creative Control. If you can't find an episode that you're looking for, that you heard about, and you can't find it on any of those platforms, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com. Also, you can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at VishCreative, or follow me at vishkhanna. You can also listen to a radio show version of Creative Control on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time around the world at cfru.ca, or on an actual radio at 93.3 FM if you're in or near Guelph. Also, thanks to everyone who's gone to patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. It's most appreciated. If you'd like to do the same, again, patreon.com/Creative Control. I'd like to thank the in-kind support I received for this show from the likes of Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee. Also Grandad's Donuts, of course. And I'd like to thank my pal Jim Guthrie. He lets me use an instrumental version of his song, The Rest Is Yet to Come, to end the show each week. JimGuthrie.org for more information about him. And finally, you. Thanks to you for listening to me talk up to this point of this episode, and for listening to this show regularly and subscribing to it and reviewing it and rating it positively and downloading episodes. All that helps keep the show kind of in view, I guess. In view, it helps. So thank you for that. I don't know. I'll just keep going. You keep listening. I'll keep going. That's it. I got nothing more. I will talk to you very soon. Goodbye for now.